better than casting on something new as the seasons change? There is something about this time of year that just invites to a fresh start. The lights last longer, the colors outside are softer, and suddenly your knit doesn't have to be heavy. It could be airy, delicate, and perfect for a Nordic summer. Lately, I've been reaching for new projects. One that's effortless on the needles and gets my creative juices flowing. Soft yarns, flowing textures, and just enough detail to keep things interesting. It's the season for knitting that's light in your hands and full of potential. And yes, after months of working on a big project like my wedding dress, it feels so refreshing to lean into softer shapes, lighter yarns, and joyful wearable pieces that makes me excited to sit down with my latest project. Hi, and welcome to my knitting podcast. I'm Mari, a knitter and maker based in beautiful Bergen. Here I sew, knit, and create garments that brings me joy and fit into my life. If you are new here, this is a space where creativity is in progress. Patterns are suggestions, not rules. I love tweaking ideas and giving them a little twist. Whether that means adjusting the fit, rethinking the construction, or simply choosing a yarn that makes it feel more me. In today's episode, I'm sharing what's been happening on and off my needles as we step into summer. I have two new cast-ons, one that might just be the perfect summer tee, silky, breezy, and full of copper-speckled beauty, and a rich pink work in progress that's on its way to look like a sweater. We'll take a look back at the most special knit I've ever made, my handmade wedding dress, and how I made it wearable magic, and the slow but satisfying finish of a cozy little brioche vest. So whether you're knitting along, organizing your stash, or just in need of your little inspiration, I hope this episode feels like a calm, creative pause in your day. Okay, so let's start with what I'm wearing today, because honestly, this top deserves the spotlight. This is my yellow Zweig, a design by Caitlin Hunter that was released back in 2017. It's a fingering weight yoke sweater worked from the top down, and it's got everything I love in a knit. It's lace, it's color work, and it's texture. It's like a greatest hits album for sweater lovers. What really draws me to yoke sweater like this one is the relaxed beauty of the shape. There's something so timeless about the round yoke. When you pair it with fingering weight yarn, it just drapes beautifully. It's soft, flattering, and super wearable. Not too heavy, not too delicate, just that perfect in between. For this version, I used Retrosaria Mondim, dyed by amazing Bien Aimée. If you're not familiar with Mondim, it's a non-superwash fingering weight yarn made from the finest Portuguese wool. It's actually named after a little village in Portugal that's famous for its sock knitting. Now, here is why I love it. Mondim has that classic woolly feel. It's rustic, but it's approachable. And because it's tightly spun, it gives you incredible stitch definition. Perfect for patterns like Zweig that have lace and texture all over. The motifs will just pop. The yarn has about 375 meters per 100 grams, and honestly, it's a dream for texture knits. I find when I work lace in this base, it comes out so crisp and defined, but still keeps that natural bounce that makes wool so special. And yeah, this top, it's a favorite. The pattern is a joy to knit, and the yarn is just perfect. And the color? This golden yellow just radiates happiness. I feel like sunshine whenever I wear it. And who doesn't really want that? Alright, let's talk about one of my finished objects, the Dori Vest. Now, this one may not take up as much space as a sweater, but trust me, the satisfaction level is just as high. It's a cropped, fitted vest worked in brioche stitch. It has the cutest little details. It has rounded neckline, neat ribbed edges, and those lovely side ties. They just add such a lovely touch. The construction is great too. You start from the top with the back panel, then pick up stitches for the front. It all comes together so smoothly, and once you've finished off the ribbing, it feels perfectly finished. Like every detail is exactly where it should be. For yarn, I used Rauma Fivel in color 09, which is this rich deep blue. It's super wearable, and honestly, it goes with everything. Fivel is a Norwegian wool that's on the softer side. For Norwegian wool, it still has that cozy rustic texture that I enjoy, But if you're on the sensitive side, keep that in mind that this one is a bit traditional. As usual, I knit a little on the looser side, so I went down to a 4mm needle to stay on gauge. And let me just say, brioche stitch, that's no joke. I always forget that every row is basically worked twice, which means progress feels so slow. This vest took me a solid 3 months to finish, but at the end, it's worth the while. Now that that's done, I absolutely adore it. It's the kind of piece that I'll know I wear over and over. It looks amazing layered with a white button down or a fitted turtleneck, and I can see it styled up a bit for work. It hits that sweet spot of being both practical and beautiful, which, let's be honest, is the holy grail of a handmade knit. If you're looking for a pattern that's beautiful in its design and satisfying in the end result, I really recommend giving the Dori Vest a go. Now, let me tell you about a project that are really my style, my second finished object, my impro dress. This one is super special because it's completely improvised. No traditional pattern, just a loose plan, a lot of intuition, and a bit of knitting math magic. It's the kind of project that just reminds me why I love knitting so much. There's freedom, creativity, and just enough structure to keep things grounded. If you want to see the full journey from yarn choice to shaping to the final reveal, I actually made a whole separate vlog about this dress. I link it in the description, so be sure to check that one out next. I also share my 4 best knitting math hacks in that video, so if you've ever been curious about knitting without a pattern, that's one for you. But here I want to share the highlights and what this project taught me along the way. So, where did it begin? Well, technically it started as a vest, or at least I used a vest pattern as a jumping off point. Just enough structures to give me confidence with things like necklines and shoulder, but from there I was freestyling. I changed the gauge, swapped out the yarn, added my own texture pattern, and just like that it started to transform into a dress. The texture pattern became one of my favorite parts. It's simple but has a lovely rhythm. 3 knit rows, a purl row, a little knit 2 together and yarn over moment, back to knits and purls, which kept things interesting without too much purling. With a little strategic placing, I got to avoid almost all the purl stitches, which, to be honest, I avoid whenever is possible when I knit flat. Once I got past the bodice, I had to think about shaping the skirt. That's where the math came in. I knew how wide I wanted the hips to be, so using my gauge, I figured out I needed to add about 52 stitches. I spaced increases out on several rounds, keeping the shaping soft and subtle. Stitch markers were key here. They kept me sane without needing to count like a hawk every round. And then there's the yarn. This dress was made entirely from stash yarn, which made it even more meaningful. Each yarn brought its own story. I used Isabella Highland wool in the color wine. It's a rich color that gave the fabric both warmth and depth. I also used Isabella tween in the color wine. This one added texture and that beautiful, slightly rustic vibe. Lastly, I used some skeins of Garnsur mohair, and this one is close to my heart. Garnsur was a Norwegian indie brand with a social mission, so working with their yarn felt like knitting with purpose. Seeing all those yarn come together into a cohesive piece was honestly magical. Turning treasures from stash into finished garments, that's the kind of knitting that fills your soul. Now, was it all smooth sailing? Of course not. There were moments of doubt. Will it fit? Do I have enough yarn? Is it going to look weird? That's a part of improvising. You just have to stay flexible, try it on a lot, and trust that you can always adapt if needed. I kept reminding myself there's always room to pivot. And finally, it was done. My impro dress. I originally imagined it as a winter piece, something cozy with tights and boots, but I actually finished it in May. And now it's a beautiful transitional piece that I can wear throughout spring and into autumn. This project taught me a few big lessons. You do not have to know everything to start, you just need to be curious. Following your gut is just as important as following a pattern, and stash yarn isn't leftover, it's potential. So if you're ever thought about trying something like this, here's your sign. You can do it. Start with what you know, stay open to change, and let the yarn lead the way. So let's talk about one of my current works in progress, my Isabella Sweater. And this one is actually my own design. This is a new project. I'm about a week in, and it's already shaping up to be something really special. I made enough progress to get a feel of the fabric, the fit, and where I want the design to go. So I'm loving it so far. The sweater is based on a structure I've been using and refining over years. When I make sweaters for myself, I always start with my trusty spreadsheet, filled with gauge notes, size tweaks, and shaping formula. It's what helps me knit pieces that not only fit well, but feels just right on my body. This time I stuck with my go-to raglan construction. It's familiar, it's flexible, and it gives me room to experiment with the design detail while keeping the overall shape practical and easy to wear. But let's talk about the yarn, because this is where the real excitement begins. The yarn was a Christmas gift from my mother, which always gives it so much meaning. She chose La Bien Aimée on the Helix base, and it's an absolute dream to work with. Helix is a blend of Falkland merino and Gotland wool. The combination creates this soft halo and gentle sheen that almost glows in the light. It has that perfect balance of rustic texture and elegance. Because of Gotland wool, fibers are naturally grey, and they are blended here with white merino. This base has a luminous quality that really makes colors pop. I'm using the colorway Lisa. It's a deep, rich pink with hints of burgundy. It's bold without being overpowering, and it feels like the kind of color that instantly brightens your wardrobe and your mood. I already know it's going to be a standout piece. Now, for the design vision, I'm planning on bell sleeves that lands just below the elbows, something soft and a little vintage inspired. So I want to keep the body slightly cropped so it pairs perfectly with high-waisted trousers or skirts. Think a little structure and a little playful. And because I always love a pretty finish, I'm considering some lace details, maybe on the hem, the cuffs, or even a delicate color on the neckline. I haven't decided yet. I want to see how it develops as I go and let the design unfold naturally. After focusing on more structure-neutral projects lately, diving into pieces that are full of color has been incredibly refreshing. There's a sense of freedom in working with yarn that feels joyful in your hands and vibrant to look at. At this point, I've finished the neckline and are going through the yoke shaping before making my way down the body. The fabric is light, soft, and has this gentle flow that makes it feel really fun to knit. So yes, still in the early days, but the Isabella sweater is well on its way, and I'm so excited to see how it turns out. And I'll definitely keep you updated as it grows. Alright, it's time to talk about a truly fresh start, because this next project is brand new on my needles. And this is almost cheating because I've only started casting it on. It is the Diona Tee by Sari Nordland, and wow, what a beauty. Between the design and the yarn, this project captures the essence of warm weather knitting so perfectly. I always loved summer knitting. There's something incredibly satisfying about making lightweight, breathable garments that you can actually wear right away. The Diona Tee really checks all the boxes. It's light, it's elegant, and it has that sweet spot between simplicity and thoughtful detail. What really drew me in was the cable motifs. It runs beautifully down both the front and the back of the tee, adding texture and visual interest. And then the 2x2 ribbing along the sides and sleeves keeps everything feeling balanced and wearable. It looks elevated but still easygoing, and that's a great combination. Of course, I'm already planning a few small tweaks to make it suit me just right. I've decided to extend the sleeves just a bit, just enough for that extra bit of coverage that I always appreciate. It will still be breezy and summery, but with a little bit more aligned with my personal style and comfort level. Now, let's talk about the yarn, because this is where the story gets even more fun. I'm using a silk blend from the Wool Kitchen, and it's been in my stash for quite some time. I actually bought it at Edinburgh Yarn Fest in 2019. Which makes it quite special. Original, it was a part of another project that didn't quite work out, So I frogged it, and now I'm giving this gorgeous yarn a second life it truly deserves. The color is just stunning. It's a soft, airy blue with delicate copper speckle. It feels serene with just a little shimmer and surprise. I think it will make the cables really pop without overpowering the pattern. The Diona Tee is worked seamlessly from the top down, starting with a clean, twisted 1x1 ribbed collar that flows right into the cables. There's thoughtful constructions throughout, short row shaping in the neckline for a flattering fit, and a tubular bind-off to keep things stretchy and neat. It's designed to be slightly cropped, which I think pairs perfectly with summer skirts or trousers. Like with most top-down knits, it's super easy to customize if you want to play with the length. So now we're at the end of the episode. At the segment, I like to go over knits I wear the most. And this time, I wouldn't actually call this my most used knit for May, but it was definitely my best used knit, and maybe ever, because yes, if you have missed it, I have actually knitted my own wedding dress. Not just a little accessory, not a shawl, not a shrug, an actual full-length, lace-covered wool wedding gown, and I still can't quite believe I pulled it off. Now, I won't share every little detail here because I made a full video about the process from the first swatch to the final stitch, including the behind the scenes, the beading madness, the sewing chaos, and yes, even last minute panic fixes. And I'll leave that link in the description if you want the full deep dive. But here's the short version and why this dress meant so much to me. The whole idea started with a spark of inspiration. I saw a photo of another handmade wedding gown. Thank you, Kutavakika. And immediately thought, could I actually do this? And from there, I just decided to go for it. I began with the skirt, starting from the knees down, to test to see if I could manage that much lace knitting. I didn't follow a specific pattern. I combined a few elements from Camilla Vad's Magnolia and Lene Holmesam Søes Dahlia, improvising the structure as I went. The yarn was Sanne Sunday, which was perfect, soft, light with just enough structure for the lace to bloom beautifully. Once the lower skirt was done, I made a purple test dress to figure out the shaping and the fit of the upper half. I went for saddle shoulders, scooped neckline, a lace bodice, all completely customized using my trusty spreadsheet and some beautiful Japanese stitch motifs. And then, because apparently I like challenging myself right up until the finish line, I added beading. Tiny pearls along the cables, delicate shimmer and the bodice lace. It was gorgeous. It was also, let's be honest, a little intense. By the time April rolled around, I was still stitching on beads. Easter became sparkle season. And yes, I gave myself a shoulder inflammation. But it was worth it. The final touch, I hand sewed a sheer pearl beaded blouse to wear over the silk slip for the evening portion of the day. Just in case it got too warm for wool. Because if you're making a wedding dress, why not make two looks? Yes, it was extra, but I needed to know it would work before committing to white wool. And I'm so glad I did, because along the way I learned something crucial. The knitted dress needed support. It needed a base layer. So enter the underdress, a custom-fitted, hand-sewn silk satin slip. It wasn't just about modesty, it gave the lace something to drape over, flow against, and really shine. And when the big day came, it was everything I hoped it would be. It was sunny skies, happy tears, and the most magical moment of walking down the aisle in a dress made entirely by hand. With love, and hours, and hours, and hours of care in every stitch. So no, I didn't technically wear it all month, but it was definitely the best used knit of my life. And that definitely counts. If you want the full story, including how I improvised the shaping, designed the lace, and made the whole dress and underdress from scratch, check out the full video linked below. I share tons of tips for improvising big knitting projects, combining sewing and knitting, and keeping your cool when things don't go as planned. It's a wild, sparkly, stitch-filled story, and I promise it has a happy ending. Thank you so much for watching. It truly means the world to me that you are here and part of this creative journey. If you haven't seen the video where I share the full story of how I knitted my own wedding dress, I'd love for you to check it out. It's one of the most personal and ambitious projects I've ever taken on, and I go deep into the whole process, from first watch to final bead. You find the link right there. And if you want to follow along between videos, come join me over on Instagram. I share updates, behind the scene moments, and a whole lot of creative chaos that quite never makes it into the final cut. If you've enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up and subscribe. I would really appreciate it, and I'd love to have you along for whatever comes next. And until next time, keep knitting what brings you joy.